Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Leslie Nolan, and I do our merchandising here at OpenStore. This panel is really going to be about these founders that are sitting with me up here, hearing a little bit about their journey, how they started their brands and grew them from 0 to 1. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys to do a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about the brand that you built. You want to kick us off?
Sure. Hey guys, Brendan Brosnan. I built and sold Yogaste to OpenStore. I sold to OpenStore at the beginning of 2022. Launched the brand at the end of 2019. So it was like just shy of 2.5 years. And yeah, I had an amazing experience working with them. I had a far drive down today from Fort Lauderdale, so I'm looking forward to meeting you guys here today and having a great day. This event already looks awesome, and I'm really excited to connect with you guys.
All right, I'm Ryan Barr. I'm founder of WP Standard. We make leather goods and some footwear, stuff like that. And I've been in the dry program since August, I think July, August, so a few months now. And been toiling away in e-commerce for about 10 years now. So this has been like an interesting break and an interesting experiment to get involved with OpenStore, and looking forward to talking about the experience with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm Miguel, and I'll see you guys after the event.
All right. I think we'll start there. Let's go all the way back in time. You perfectly launched Jack Archer. Tell us a little bit about that launch, what it looked like, what you did.
If you walk into the world of e-commerce and you have the mindset of, I want to sell stuff to American people, and you think of this American consumer as this grandiose credit card spender that'll buy anything, you're walking into it with the wrong idea. So after launching a few brands and failing miserably, which in a way was a blessing, I started reverting back to problem solving, to actually finding solutions and turning those into a product. So I resorted to research on this gold mine of a website, which everybody knows about. It's called Reddit. And I started typing stuff in there. Went to male fashion advice. It's a subreddit about male fashion. And I typed in, I hate it when, and left it blank. You'll find people complaining, like really aggressively, about brands, about wives, about things, many things. And I found something very common in those findings. It was the word consistency was sort of plastered everywhere, and it meant something different for every person. What does consistent mean in a pair of pants? And so I built a product around that, around consistency, and that meant a fabric that would, it wouldn't bag out at the end of the day, that it would stay consistently clean, and it would fit my thighs and calves consistently, and all these things. So that's what I built, a solution. And that's when it worked. So I want to do that again.
We hope you do.
Yeah.
Ryan, I'd love to turn over to you. Tell us a little bit about when you started WP Standard, what initially inspired you to start the brand.
I mean, I wish I was just even close to as thoughtful as you were with you. I mean, I was really sort of out of desperation. I was a high school teacher, and I was miserable. So I literally went to the bookstore, to like the business section, how to start a business, and started reading books. And like one of the things I learned was like pick a niche, and I was a guitar player. So I'm like, well, maybe I can make some guitar accessories like out of leather or something like that. No idea, no market validation or anything like that. So I just did it and put up a website, learned about Shopify, and like remarkably, like things started to sell. So it was really like you couldn't know any less about business or the market or anything. But I just kind of got started. And then the business evolved. We started making other bags, and that when we which really led to like more growth. But it was, just really a shot in the dark at that moment to try to do something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you're a consumer of a product that you then create, it definitely leads to some organic ways of approaching the brand and finding your consumer. I know you have a little bit of a similar experience being a consumer of the products you eventually launched on your brand. Can you tell us a little bit about launching in the first place and how you got there?
Yeah, so I actually lived in like an e-commerce incubator with 12 other people. We lived on like this 30-acre property with a shooting range and golf carts, and we were like just, unlike Miguel, we were just launching brands and trying to make money. And like we were more short-term profit, like where can we just like scale, insta-scale back in 2018, which you could throw up a static image and just scale things, and who remembers those days. But we ended up, Yogaste was kind of founded out of passion for doing yoga from my partner and I. We really liked it. We're like, why don't we just combine something that we enjoy doing with our marketing knowledge and knowing how to run paid media, knowing how to do a lot of the e-commerce stuff. So that one started to take off, and we loved building like the community element of that, because it was like we were able to kind of like foster this like community engagement and offer value outside of just like selling products. So I think that was like kind of the secret sauce. Like we knew how to sell products, and then we combined the value of like community and just like giving them resources to become better yogis.
Yeah, I think a common theme among that is actually providing value for your customer and thinking about what do they need that you can surface for them. Miguel, I know you ran many tests around your branding, around the product you were launching to find product market fit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I can't go online and launch something that I like. It has to be something that is likable. I could have easily called it miguellastname.com and hoped that people in America would like the brand. Of course not. That's not going to work. It's unfortunately not going to work. So I came up with a few .coms that were available. My favorite one being apparel engineering, very focused on the technical aspects of the product. Jack Archer was one of the other options, and it wasn't my favorite one. But there's a testing tool called squadhelp.com that lets you, they throw out the name out there, and then they see, okay, which one do you prefer out of these? And they give you some demographic insights on that. And Apparel Engineer actually won, but with the younger crowd. Jack Archer won with the older crowd, older male crowd, which is exactly what I was looking for. These are the high earners in America. I'm looking for, the pie, not a piece of the pie. So Jack Archer ended up winning. So I figured, okay, Jack sounds manly. Jack is an aspirational character. I got to pick out a model that resonates with this. So, I went to all the LA model websites and I pick out the most chiseled, good-looking guy I could find. The logo, I made it very masculine as well, and built a website around this aspiration that was, you are going to be a really good-looking man if you buy these pants, basically, right? There's a lot of other sections to it. One of the angles that work the most is it's going to make your butt look pretty good and round. And it does have that feature, right? I'm not lying in my advertising. You can't do that.
And the angle still works too.
Yeah. And, it's like, okay, so one piece of the puzzle, the other piece of the puzzle, and it actually formed a brand. And little did all my customers know that there was this, brown kid out of Portugal working with their laptop selling these pants to these people, right? But they found themselves in this brand. They resonated with it. And you could see it in the CPAs. It was around $40 initially on my first $40 of ad spend, and then I just scaled it up with an average order value of $150. I was like, okay, it's working. So I put all my money in there with inventory and scaled it up. And then you came in. Really quickly.
Took it from there. I know you, Brendan, were testing designs in a similar-ish model around testing what worked in ads and then deciding to invest in inventory. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so we would just pre-sell like everything before actually spending money on inventory. We would have our designers create mock-ups and made it look like a real product, and then would tell the customer that like, hey, this is pre-sale. We won't have this for like 6 to 8 weeks. And we would just like test it on Facebook, look at the engagement, look at the click-through rate, and then look at like what people were ultimately buying. And that's how we always based our inventory decisions. We would just like, the beautiful thing about performance marketing is you get real-time data. So like we were just using that to tell us exactly where to spend our money, and launch new products in different categories.
Great. Ryan, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you thought about launching new products in your brand and what you think customers were coming back for when they did come to your brand.
Yeah, I think it was part intuition, but part testing as well. Like I said, I started in the guitar niche, and like we don't sell any guitar products anymore. It was like seeing my girlfriend at the time bring home a tote bag, and I'm like, that doesn't look so nice. Let me try to make one. And so we did that, and then that category became kind of the biggest category. And I never expected to be making women's tote bags, but I kind of just saw that in my own life and figured it was worth a test. And that has served me well for the most part. There's been some misses, but I think it's part taking some chances with things, but part looking out for things. So like lately, slippers has been a bigger category for us, and I didn't know how big a slipper market might be or if it'd be interesting, but that seems to be taking off. So I think it's part of just observing what's going around, what you're interested in, but also getting that validation.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So these tote bags did you take inspiration from your girlfriend? Did she have a problem that she was solving with that tote bag that made you develop one?
She just wasn't that happy. She brought it. She's like, I bought this. I think I kind of like it, but I don't love it. And I just didn't think the quality of the leather was that great for the price point. So I said, well, let me just try it. But I was nowhere near as probing as you might be. I wasn't on the sites looking for problems and things like that. I was more just like, let me just take a swing at this because, maybe it could be interesting. It doesn't seem that difficult to make.
Yeah, I think being familiar with the kind of supply chain between both of your brands as well, I think you have made really great connections with your suppliers and were able to have lower minimum order quantities where, Miguel, I know there was a larger investment around every single PO coming over for your brand.
Yeah, there's this cash flow game you have to play really hard. It's probably the deterrent behind growth mostly. The thing is, it hit the ground running so fast. I didn't have any inventory when I launched. I pretended to be in stock in the very beginning just to see, okay, what's my CPA? Is this worth it? But I had already invested in product development, in the website building, a big photo shoot, maybe like $40K in. I was like, okay, let's do it, let's try. But I'm not gonna buy a bunch of inventory yet. And when the first, $10, $20 of ad spend, $40, okay, an order came in, $80, 2 orders came in, very consistently. First off, you have to fulfill those orders. But how many do you want to fulfill? So I decided to make it Kickstarter-esque. I decided to raise money to fund manufacturing, but I also didn't want it to be too far away. Apparel has 4-month lead times. Especially when you're starting out, it's a little bit harder, including freight, but also that was right when the supply chain crisis was happening and LA was backed up and boats were sitting there for a month. So thing is, decision was made to invest most of my net worth into that inventory just because I had really good signals. And I bought a bunch of that inventory, pre-sold about 80% of it, and I had a remaining 20% that I would be able to sell in stock. But you don't want to stop there. You want the next round of inventory. So how are you going to fund that one? Had I had some sort of angel investor in the family or something like that, that would have been a big blessing. I would have probably kept Jack. So lesson learned, right? That's for the next time. Now I must have somebody on the back sort of like waiting for my signal, hey, we need more inventory cash. Just because of those lead times. If you can solve those lead times, like that's a blessing. I think the next move is actually like buying a factory, to be honest.
Maybe something we should think about.
Yeah.
Brendan, I'd love to hear on the P&L side, how did that go for you? Was this something you guys were locked in up front, or did you solve it down the line?
With our cash flow,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, similarly, like we had, once we started scaling, we did run into some, cash flow issues. We were just like throwing a ball back and getting the sales, and then we'd have to order more inventory, wait for it to come back, order more. So like, I know all you guys know that struggle, but eventually we got to the point where like we had more than enough money to cover all future POs, and like we started expanding our products. So it just took like patience the first year, I think, and then a good initial upfront investment too into inventory. But yeah, I mean, after a year, like we had it figured out, and we're able to order whatever we wanted.
Do you think there was anything you did on the pre-order side or testing products that made you go from having capital constraints to 1 year later feeling like you had the cash flow you needed?
Yeah, I mean, we just didn't like sit on slow selling SKUs. Like we didn't order SKUs that people didn't want. So like we knew like, and the SKUs that we did order that people didn't want, we were able to liquidate them through, mystery offers and thank you page upsells and like a few like creative ways we were able to like move our bottom movers. But we just kept like looking at our top 10 SKUs, looking at those and figuring out like, what do people like about these, surveying our customers, seeing what they wanted more of, and then just like offering them those products. So it was a pretty simple process, but like we just got good at like launching. I think Yogaste had like at one point like 500 plus products that we were selling, some inventory, some print on demand, kind of like a hybrid model that we were doing. So I think that was effective. We had speed to market with print on demand stuff. We had a moat with inventoried products, and then we were able to kind of combine both of those things to fuel our marketing.
Great. Ryan, I'd love to hear if there were any obstacles as you were getting familiar with the whole e-commerce landscape and starting your brand that you ran into that maybe you hadn't anticipated.
Yeah, getting started with the manufacturing, just the capital constraints of that, it's always difficult when you're growing. I mean, luckily, I kind of started as a side business, and then, you do $100,000 in revenue, and then all of a sudden you do $500,000 and $1 million. And that was putting cash in the bank. And having that supply chain in Mexico and where you can ground ship and do lower minimums just made it so much easier to end up navigating, because you're just flying blind when you start, and like you don't know, it's just impossible to forecast. So that was difficult at first, but like forging those vendor relationships or those supply relationships, getting terms, things like that made that like much easier, but it was difficult at first.
Yep. Miguel, anything you learned along the way that has informed your next endeavors?
A lot of times you run into having a product that you have to reverse engineer solutions for. And you run into the death spiral of ad spend on that product to try and make it work. And you start blaming the platform, you start blaming the pixel, you start blaming CPMs and all these things, right? And when reality, it's that nobody wants it. You're not framing it right. And that reverse engineering process is very painful. It's also it hits you in the heart, because you're like, oh, I put my soul into this. And I'm like, did you really talk to your customer? No. So like that's my biggest red flag, and definitely something I want to avoid in the future. Perhaps I'll give you a little trick on how to get it done on the cheap. And say you have a couple of product ideas, and very much like what you did, actually, without investing inventory in it. But you can even go even cheaper without actually running conversion campaigns. Facebook is an engagement platform. They want to keep people on it. That's their goal. And with that in mind, they sort of prefer content that gets people to like, share, comment, or interact with the ad. But it sort of punishes content that gets people off of the platform. That's where CPMs come in, right? So if you're rewarded with a cheap CPM, you're going to be rewarded with a good cost per click and good traffic and cheaper traffic. So with that in mind, you can run 100 different ads that have the same constants between them except one thing. So you can vary, for example, you have an image, a primary text, and a headline. You have the same image on all the ads. You run a reach campaign or a brand awareness campaign, 100% broad except for the gender or your target market. And you vary the headline between them. So now you're running a statistical test. And then you measure at the end, after about 2,000 impressions for each one, you set a rule where you have to run 2,000 impressions for each one. With a reach campaign, it's going to be like a $2 CPM, so it'll be a really cheap thing to do. And then you measure cost per click at the end across all of them. Cost per click is probably your best measurement there because it measures click-through rate and CPMs. And so you can also vary, like you have 10 headlines of the butt angle, butt concept, 10 headlines regarding the angle concept, if that's what you're doing with pants. And you compare the average cost per click between them. Now you have insights into what's a higher engagement message. Okay, that's message. Now do one for images. So you can render a product like you did and sort of create a virtual product. Or if you already have the product, okay, which sort of photo shoot will do best? You run a test against that one. Now you have answers that will give you a better shot at building, getting the winner of this one, the winner of the image, the winner of the headline, combining it into one single ad that has been pre-tested for engagement. So it's like a way to skip spending thousands and thousands and landing into a high probability ad. That's a way to reverse engineer if you're in that situation.
Basically break apart all the pieces to build something that you have high confidence in.
That is ultra high engagement, right?
Yep. I'd love to switch gears a little bit and being conscious of time. What made you decide to start exploring an exit opportunity with OpenStore?
Yeah, we were building multiple businesses at the time, and when I reached out to OpenStore, we got, a solid valuation. We were kind of like ready to start selling some of our businesses, and I was really happy that we sold to OpenStore. Like, it worked super well. Like, got to give you guys the shout out there. Like, I was super happy. We had all our money in like 30 days. It was super easy, seamless. Sold a couple other businesses to another private equity firm, and I'm dealing with some issues over there. This guy just don't want to go too deep into that, but had a really good experience, and we'll do it again in a second.
And what are you up to now?
I'm selling bidets. So I have a bidet company, bringing bidets to America. I'm working with a couple of brands, doing a little bit of paid media consulting work. But yeah, I'm really focused on the direct to consumer, trying to build brands up again. So
Awesome. Ryan, I think you're our most recent engagement. Why did you decide to explore an exit with OpenStore?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this for a while, and I think I was a little bit tired. I think you do this for a number of years, and you sort of plateau, and you just don't quite have maybe the energy you once did for it, or the inspiration. And I still like the business. But when I heard about Drive, it seems, okay, you're going to take over all the stuff I don't want to do, and I still own it. Yeah, it just seemed like a great fit for where I was mentally and where the business was. And I also think it needed some new energy. I've always been sort of like a solopreneur type, small team, and I think I needed some distance from things. So this provided really a nice option to still be in it, but get some distance at the same time. So so right now I am just taking a little time off. I still maintain, we have a bit of a wholesale channel, so I'm still running that side of things and being able to be involved with those partners still. But at the same time, just kind of letting y'all take the wheel with the direct-to-consumer side. So it's been
Great. And Miguel, why did you decide to explore an exit in the first place?
It was a cash flow thing. It was, here's the thing, like I've done this a couple of times, and where you launch and you prove that it works, and then what I like is the building process. It's the actually making it work, and it's a dopamine hit, and then when it happens, it's like the dopamine is gone. It's like, okay, now I have to run this thing. And you guys were eager, like, give it to me. And I'm like, okay.
You insist.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what are you up to now?
I'm hopping over to the other side of the aisle, and I'm doing women's apparel now. I got into a call with a brand out of Uruguay called Rotunda, and they had a bunch of retail stores, and I saw their Instagram, and it was sexy, and it was very Zara, a bunch of products that were super high-end. They got me on a call. Somebody got me on a call with them because they wanted to open stores in Spain. They were going all in on Spain. I'm like, I'm just doing a little quick consulting call. I take them every once in a while, and I told them, why? Like, what about the big whale? What about the U.S.? What about e-commerce? And a couple of months later, we're running a test with a fake store with their previous collections. We're measuring CPAs. We're determining what product category to focus on. And we signed a deal where I come in as a partner with the U.S. operation, and we're launching next week with paid ads, using all my learnings.
Thank you, guys.